My name is Kirkman. I was born in Greenville, South Carolina. I currently live here in Tucson, Arizona, in Barrio Santa Rosa. I attend the Philip Schultz founded writer studio. I'm one-fifth of Zelmer Pulp and a founding member of the Low Riders Collective. I'm known for writing very lyrical, very metaphysically dense noir stories of humans struggling, moving towards redemption. I write because I'm allowed to. When I think of all the people in all the different countries throughout the world and through time, one of the greatest ways to suppress the people's voice is one, denying them the ability to read, as they did with slaves, because the ability to read is to articulate a thought, and second is to be able to articulate that thought in written form. When you write, you have this ability to not only influence people around you in this moment, but it's almost like a time bomb of illumination and coming into awareness in the future. And there's something very powerful. It's like, as much as there's weapons, bombs, and torture, there's something so fearful about a truly articulate truth.
A few more customers flow through, but my thoughts are elsewhere. I am a phantom. My actions are on automatic. The hustle on instinct. All day, the crack baggies in my palm hatch into cash like caterpillars into butterflies. The green paper folds like origami wings. Cocaine starlight.
When I'm a person who's definitely deeply influenced by the struggles in Mexico. When I think about the tens of thousands of people slaughtered, and even more who just simply vanish, which is a fate even crueler than execution or death, is to vanish, is the great unknown. And I think of all the journalists killed there. I think about all these people that are trying to speak for the people, to articulate what they can't, and to see the sheer amount of brutality to not just the journalists, the writers, and the people, but their families, for simply trying to live humbly and good and to be decent to the common man, and to be slaughtered simply because they are in the way of a great evil. So when I wake up each morning and I think about all the people in my life that have died, I think about my brother who had really come into his own in Beijing, China, and one of our last conversations was about both of us realizing our dream of being a writer. And then when he passed away, like a lot of great writers and artists in my life, there was the imperative, the importance of using these fragile moments in life to do something bigger than oneself, to be able to really look at the darker aspects, to be able to pull beauty out of hell. Growing up in children's hospitals and in and out of surgeries, not as many as a lot of people, but enough to put me in a position to kind of see how deep the layers of suffering are. I've always kind of existed in this place between God and life. Death has never been something that I've ever been afraid of, because I was born into this kind of the sense of the divine. And what all this kind of wraps around to is that being in pain all the time, watching people suffer, watch people die, seeing and just incredible stuff as I walk around from city to city. The only thing I can truly offer this world is a beautiful vision.
Why bother with imaginary gods when the true giants live amongst us in the ocean and rise from the earth in towering bursts of emerald foliage? No one has ever found the bones of Zeus, but I have stood before the skeleton of the great blue whale as the waves of the ancient Atlantic rolled across it. The atheist.
Publication success is important, and I want to be known as a great writer who, despite his flaws and weaknesses and mistakes made in life, that when all said and done, I'm long buried, that I did try to offer something beautiful and something that moved the human spirit, that inspired other people to want to do better. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is for me kind of a difficult thing to talk about. Not so much because it's I don't like discussing my health issues and the pain I'm in. It's mostly because when you grow up going to children's hospitals and you're in kind of this revolving door of going from doctor to doctor, and you're missing school, and you're missing the kind of connections with your peers because there's something really wrong with you physically, and you're going to expert after expert, and you can smell that caustic bleach smell of hospitals, that kind of cold clinical. You've seen all these sick people, kids, leukemia, and you're going and you're kind of sitting there exposed as one doctor after the next comes and pokes you and examines you and has you lift up this, and they constantly tell you there's something wrong here, but we don't know what it is. And I think a lot of parents of people with rare genetic diseases, not just Ehlers-Danlos, but the whole just lexicon of them can relate to that process. And it's a strange thing to have something wrong with you and to go to the best in their field and to look up at a face that is just perplexed. So then when I say it's difficult to talk about, it's because when you're so used to repeating the story hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times to strangers, it's like saying a word over and over and over again. It begins to lose its meaning. It's gum that loses its flavor. For me, how that affects it is when I was about 15, I'd already been in and out of some children's hospitals. My body began to mutate, and my skeletal structure began to mutate. And one of my manifestations of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome was scoliosis. So around age 15, they had to saw my jaw off to move it forward in preparation to a back surgery at 16 where they put two 24-inch titanium rods in my spine, and they took a piece of the hip to kind of fuse together. Because of the collagen defect, everything in my body was kind of mutating and crushing inwards, kind of like a star imploding. I was growing taller, but I was growing downwards at the same time. My ribs were beginning to crush into my lungs, moving the ability to breathe. But at the time, because there wasn't the internet and there was these forums and YouTube, there wasn't this kind of ability to connect other people with it. So you're going into doctors that this was the first time seeing it. So you got constantly misdiagnosed. And I think a lot of people relate to that. And they began giving you medicine based upon a false diagnosis. So from a very early age, I was being experimented on, given lots of high-powered drugs. And it began to kind of cause a disconnect. I wouldn't be a writer if it wasn't for my brother. So much of what I write began as a desire to impress my brother, as young brothers are often do. And I can't imagine how to articulate a more transformative moment in my life than finding out my brother died at age 32 in Beijing, China. He was a writer there, an amazing writer. Been a Marine, he's been a boxer, a ballroom dancer. He's an adventurer and a titan of a being. Far more of a dynamic, passionate person than I am in terms of socially. I can't even convey everything he means to me. For now, I know what my brother would want me to do. What an older brother would want a little brother to do if the older brother passes, and that's just to bring it, to let everyone know what Kirkman brothers are built of. To let the world know what we got, and I'll always honor him.
My finger disperses the foam from the top of the mug like the wind blowing the leaves from the trees over Jonah's body. I wet my lips with the images of that evening. I drink in the night, drink in the trees, and swallow the moonlight and stars. I drink until the drink goes bitter and thin to the sediment at the bottom of the glass. I stare at the bottom as the remnants slosh about. The atheist.
I guess you would call me a nobody. I was and never was. People were very quick to say, you're never gonna make it. I mean, when my brother died, I remember people coming up to me in the funeral saying, when we heard the news, we thought it was you. My death was the most, it was just as likely for me to die than it was the sun to rise. It was something everyone was sure of. But for me, I wanted to be a writer from the get-go. I remember I was like 5 years old and I began writing my autobiography, which is like a completely absurd thing because it's just like, what is a 5-year-old thing? But I really was like, I remember, my mom would bring home these big, massive, like tablets used for accounting, for doing numbers. They're like really long. I remember beginning my autobiography. It was like, I came into this world and I pissed in the doctor's face. And I remember that being the line, like, just like a really weird line, which is kind of like my grand anthematic declaration. It's my call me Ishmael. My tattoos are done by Tracy Ledbetter, Southbound Studios, which is a phenomenal artist, but also a phenomenal human being. And I think that's important when you're getting inked, is the energy you put in, is the energy of the artist. It's the core of the sun that shines light, because they're embedding your body with the radiation of their consciousness. So you gotta make sure that it's not, funky. My Amy Winehouse tattoo. Amy Winehouse is, to me, just, when I think about the purity of art, where someone was iconic, Amy Winehouse just makes my soul just shake. It's a hard thing, that riptide between creation and destruction. So I honor Amy Winehouse and all the strong women who are put into cookie cutters in society until they bleed or drink their way out or self-destruct or rise up out. Frida Kahlo, what she reminds me of always is my connection with her comes from a lot of the health problems we both have had. She's someone that had been in a horrible accident, and a lot of her art and creation came out of being in hospital beds, and she kind of managed to just form like smoke these beautiful symbolic portraits of herself, and they're just vibrant and frightening with the intellectual intent. I think a lot of times in society we define strength as some type of a masculine thing, and I don't know. The women that tattooed on me have to be twice or triple as strong, and Frida Kahlo teaches me to craft something beautiful out of pain. I mean, Joan of Arc is just a phenomenal figure, that she could hear the voice of God and trust in it, and see angels and trust in it, when other people would probably call her crazy, and which they did, or witch, and to follow that, and to be a young woman, and to go to war, and to save her people, and just to completely put herself out there. There's nothing more phenomenally beautiful than a human living outside themselves in that capacity. And the heartbreak and the reminder that good deeds have to be done because they are needed, not for accolades. Because if we're talking about accolades, her accolades was a fire they burned her in. But it's always good to remind oneself that if you're going to do something, you've got to do it whether A, it makes sense, B, you're going to get any love for it. Because it has to be understood from the lens of the spirit world, not from the fogged lens of the human eye. On my left arm is The number's 79797, and the flower is the daisy to represent purity. They're my numerology. That's my numerological code that I came into this world. And for those who aren't familiar, numerology is a form of divination that traces back to Pythagorean times and before, where each number has a certain symbol and it represents something in the world. And all numbers have a spiritual root to them. And the 7 represents wisdom, intellect. It is the number of the mystic. My full name, Benjamin Isaac Kirkman, when you change the letters to numbers and you calculate all, it breaks down to the number 7. That's a holy number. The vowels, which is the soul of the name, is the number 9. The number 9 is the artist, the creator. It is someone that seeks to heal through art. You'll find the 9 in nature, like the 9 planets, the 9 before Pluto was changed, the 9 months to give birth. That all these numbers, numerology, have connections with the physical world. In numerology, you add the soul number, which is the vowels, you add the persona, which is the consonants together, and you get the full number, and that's the 79797. I think Maria Santos Grosteta is the most important tattoo you will find on me. She is the mayor, or was the mayor, of a small Mexican town. She was known before last year as a brave, caring, and loving woman of her people who survived not 1 but 2 attempts on her life, where she was shot multiple times, her husband at the time killed, standing up for her people. And last November, they came for her, and she was with her daughter, and she begged them, take me, but leave my daughter. Her daughter had to watch her drive away, and they found her body beaten, crushed, and stabbed, and just tossed out like garbage. It is a reminder always that there's great evil in this world that will do anything to crush innocent, pure people for their own gain. One can never, ever, ever allow people that make such a sacrifice to ever be forgotten.
Adelita was a river carrying currents of the dead like fish, a tree bearing carrion instead of fruit. This protein love.
So with everything I write and say, everything I live is always the clear light of that sun shining over that little girl as her mother was taken away. Because her entire actions were based upon one simple thing: the faith that someone will pick up that torch and will carry it, even if it's the risk of their own life. And I honor the faith of her and every other great hero that has lost their lives in this war.
In a world where the worth of a being is measured by the number of likes and digital followers, the nobody's movements are the chemistry of revolution. A nobody is someone freed from all expectations, a body without a soul, a bird without a cage. Going unnoticed, they are privy to the secrets of saint and sinner alike, free to color outside the lines with blood or with love. A nobody is an amphibian cast out of the world of fish, the holy graffiti scrawled across the walls of forgotten cities. A nobody's at the end of every line, in the center of every crowd. The nobody is the blank space that ink finds its soulmate. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? And 1,000 awakening hearts will answer, yes.
My name is Isaac Kirkman, and I'm a nobody.